tinguluncu, tingumwandla, tingumfene mazabi, uzaba. Zabelwa abafokazi, tinguhlathi. Hlathi elikhulu elingothiwa selivutha lothiwa zimfene kuba imfene zibaninilo. My people, today we are continuing with what we've been doing this whole week. Guys, the truth is that if we don't do the telling of the story ourselves, somebody else is going to come and tell it for you. That's just the reality. That is just the reality, that somebody's going to come and tell it for you. Yeah. My brother, Mufukeng, how are you, my brother?
Mrenaka. Hayate.
Is everything good, my brother?
Everything is good, my brother. I'm with my beginnings right here.
Yeah, no, it's all right, my brother. It's all right. Just before we start, there was a question about Nongqawuse. There was a question about Nongqawuse, about what my opinion of Nongqawuse is. Firstly, Nongqawuse did exist. There's no doubt about that. Nongqawuse did exist. We have a lot of unrecorded indigenous history about Nongqawuse. And I'm talking about history that is not in books regarding Nongqawuse. There's a lot of it. So, but what I can say is that there's a lot of exaggeration of the events surrounding Nongqawuse. You see, one of the things that people don't realize is that in those days, Nongqawuse, a 16-year-old child, could not have convinced the nation to destroy their economy. It's impossible. That would be impossible to do for a 16-year-old girl to convince an entire nation to destroy the whole economy on a promise that some spirit is going to come and chase white people to the sea. What people misunderstand is that the time of Nongqawuse was a time of a movement. More like, you see, today there's AfriForum, there's Lex Libertas, there's Solidaridate. AfriForum, Lex Libertas, and Solidaridate are the public-facing arms of an old movement that started long ago, before apartheid even ended. There were fringe lunatics within the Afrikaner community who felt that apartheid was too soft, The apartheid government was too soft. And this was, it dates back to the times of the Anglo-Boer, wars, where some Dutch or some Boers felt like the leaders are in bed with the enemy, okay? So that is a very important understanding, that there were always these fringe lunatics in the Afrikaner society who felt like, Afrikaner power and whatever is weakened, it's rendered docile by working with the English. And then during apartheid, there were still voices who felt like apartheid was too soft, By the way, Groenewald is one of those people who felt like the apartheid National Party was too soft and too weak. I'm only drawing this to say there was always that constant, campaign. But you only see it now as AfriForum in 2026 to say, AfriForum is doing this, AfriForum is doing that. But AfriForum is literally the tip of the iceberg. It's a thing that's been going on for decades before AfriForum. And this is true for many other historical things that we talk about. Oh, there was an Anglo-Zulu war, there was a whatever. These things start long before they actually show up. So the whole thing of Nongqawuse is part of a range of campaigns of similar stature. So Nongqawuse is just someone who got famous in that time period, but there were many personalities like Nongqawuse in that time period, even decades before Nongqawuse was 16 years old. There were people, and it was not just Nongqawuse, there was another young girl called Nongqawuse. But there was an elder now called Umhlakaza, the real shaman. You see, the real shaman, Umhlakaza, who Nongqawuse was under the care of, you understand? But before that, there were many other prophetesses and prophets, but I don't like to use that, man. We call them, I think it's best to say shaman and diviner. Yeah, but there were many others before that. But now let's see the contents of the work on Nongqawuse, besides the killing of cattle. Let's see the contents of the work, and then we'll see where the lies are. Ne? Nongqawuse is said to have spoken about, in around the mid 1800s, regarding the future of the Amaxhosa. Apparently in 1856, they say that she was addressed by ancestral spirits in a pool of water, which is in line with indigenous beliefs, by the way. Water was the dwelling place of the elders, the old people, the ancestors. Emzinomkhulu, echwebeni. So that is correct. That is a good point to raise. Okay, that's the first one. Apparently, she saw two faces of ancestral spirits at a small pool, kusizibana nje esincinci, in a place known as Ekhamangeni. Ikhamanga now is this sterilizer plant that you see in I think, some of the currencies of South Africa. It's one of our national plants. So Ekhamangeni, there was a small pool below a waterfall in the Xarha River, in the Xarha River area, not far from the sea. Okay. Now this river called Xarha, at its mouth, Echwebeni, slightly to the east of the Great K, or Nciba. That's where this happened. In Nciba, not far from Nciba. Apparently, Iznyanya promised that there will be a time of peace, a golden age, or time of renewal, right? A time of renewal. Because the reason why a time of renewal was such an appealing thing is because it was a time of war brought about by Europeans. It was a time of darkness brought about by Europeans. And that is what Europeans represented, the dark ages of our people. Okay. Apparently now, this is where it starts to get weird. The ancestors demanded complete obedience. To do what? To kill their cows. But here's the interesting thing. Umhlakaza, the uncle, was actually once a Christian, or he had met with these missionaries at some point. Yeah, one. He had met with missionaries at some point, because missionaries at this time were very much all over the place. Yes. And this is what's important to say. Missionaries were all over the place at that time. This was decades after Ugaba, Unsikana, who himself had met with the missionaries in depth. Remember now, missionaries are from the 1790s. From the 1790s, missionaries are already there. Nongqawuse is 60 years after the first missionary comes. 60 years, that's 2 generations. She's the 3rd generation after missionaries. So the idea that this was some pure indigenous belief system, absolutely nothing like that. At the time of Nongqawuse, already our people are corrupted. Umhlakaza, the guy, the adult who was there in the house, he was absolutely a Christian. Was a devout Christian at some point. I don't know, okay, if maybe he went back to his old ways. Yeah, you see, we can see there in the comment that he was baptized in the NG Kerk. There you go. In the Dutch Kerk, the Dutch Reformed Church, the Calvinist Church. So already, again, what you get already is very manipulated narratives. It's manipulated narratives that are intertwined with 2 generations of missionary educated people, already 2 generations, which means the last generation that was not, influenced by Western or missionary propaganda was 70 years ago. So that's the context here. Now, what we hear is that, I'm going with the mainstream narrative for now. What we hear is that apparently Mhlakaza brought the matter of attention to Usachili. Usachili now was the senior king, obviously, Inkosi enkulu of Amaxhosa and Inkosi Amagcaleka as well. Usachili apparently then went and visited Nongqawuse, and they say he was completely convinced by these prophecies, which is a lie, because Usachili, the first problem with Usachili is that Usachili didn't even know what a school was. He didn't even know what missionaries were or what a mission was. He was he was red. Usachili. And I've got receipts on that. So the idea that Sachili was convinced by all of these narratives, complete garbage, is hogwash. In fact, there were delegations sent to Mhlakaza. We even know the names of the men who were sent to discuss this thing. But the problem is, every time they go there, Nongqawuse, who is said to have been the prophet, is not seen by eye. They are not meeting Nongqawuse. They are just being told stories. Don't worry. Don't worry, it's not good weather today for the prophetess to come out. They kept on going, amadoda. In fact, I'm going to come and see if I can find the names of these people who were sent by Usachili. He did try to send people many, many times. So, again, that is a gross discount of what really happened. 1856. We even know the kings, or rather, inkoses as pet, because we don't have the word king. We are born now. 1856. We have uBhurhu, inkosi enkulu yaseTsonyana, elandela uSachili ngobukhulu ngamandla, the second in command, the son of Kauta, Ekunene, the great brother of Uyinza, and uMalashe, ngokuzalwa. uBhurhu, we know his opinion on the matter. He did not have any conviction. He did not agree with this thing. We know uBhurhu because we know oral records, not nonsensical stuff that were made up by Europeans. Do you understand what I'm saying? uBhurhu was the second most powerful person in the whole Xhosa kingdom, and he did not approve of this. And he was about 76 years by the time, by 1856. He was about 76 years, which means he was born in 1780. 19 years before the first missionary. So by the time the first missionary came, Bhurhu was almost 20. He was quite grown. He had seen it all. The second one was Usigidi. Usigidi was one of the chiefs from KwaGcaleka, and he was one of the people known as Amagogotya, those who rejected these prophecies completely. And I'm not going to say these prophecies of Nongqawuse. I'm not going to say that because we're not sure if Nongqawuse said any of these things, particularly the way that are being said. Usigidi, wenye yonkosi zakwaGcaleka, wayichasene kakhulu nokuxhelwa kwenkomo, wayeliGogotya. We had Ungubo ke ngokaMalashe. Ungubo ngokaMalashe, son of Malashe, one of the most prolific Xhosa warriors and one of the greatest friends of the king himself, Usachili. He was there. He was completely against, the killing of... And you understand, these are very powerful royal princes who are very close to the king. Ungubo kaMalashe, uBhurhu Kauta, Usigidi, all these people, Gamagogotya, they were completely against this. How could Usachili, whom we know, Sahil didn't have a temper, by the way. He was one of the most calm people ever. He did not have a temper. He has no history of, destruction. How could he go against all these people who were so close to his heart and even older than him? There's no way, guys. There's absolutely no way. I'm going to mention them by name. Ungubo Kamalash. After Ungubo Kamalash, we have Unqito. Unqito is the son of Unqamba. Unqamba is the son of Uqaba. Uphuma kwagcaleka kumavelelo. Uphuma kwagcaleka kumavelelo Unqito ngokaNqamba kaXaba. I'm not denying anything. I'm looking at the facts. How is it possible that the most influential people in the whole kingdom are against something? And we have a king who's never been disagreeable, ever. Usahil is known as a nice person. We all know him by that. He was not an angry person like Yinza. Yinza was known to have a temper. Sahil was not like that. How could Sahil alone, out of all these princes, who are his uncles, by the way, and cousins, how could he be the only one like, oh, kill all the cows, guys? Yes, everybody else in my family says no. Guys, think about it. That's not how royal people operate. You don't go and just do your own thing. So I'm not even denying them. There is no evidence. For me to deny it, it has to be true first. Then it's going to be a denial. I'm completely dismissing them. So we have Unqito kaNqamba kaXaba phaa kumavelelo. Wayechasene kakhulu noXhela kwenkomo. Wayeligogotya naye, and he was about 75 years old, just 1 year younger than Ungubo Kamalash, around the time of 1856. This is not in the ancient past. This is just now, guys. We know the names of the people. Then you have Umaphasa. Umaphasa, one of the chiefs from KwaGcaleka, phaa eNtsonyama. In fact, he's the son of uBhurhu kaKhawuta. So Umaphasa is the grandson of uKhawuta. That's why people talk about Umdudo kaMaphasa. This is the Maphasa, unyana kaBhurhu kaKhawuta. He was one of the most prolific Amagogotya, completely against. So I'm just mentioning these people, and these people are the immediate family of the king. All of them, most powerful people, the most feared warriors. They are all against killing of cows. Then you had also other kings and chiefs from Gwagwagwaghabe. For example, uSandile uMgolombana. Ebekhona kwezongxoxo. uAnta wamagwelane ebekhona naye. uAnta ke is the brother of uSandile. He's the brother of uSandile. Ndiphuma apho ke mna kwaNgqika. You also had uXhoxho kaNgqika. You also had uToyise. uToyise ke uphuma phaa kuMidushana. Yinto kanukwa leyo kaMdushane kaNdlambe. You had uSiyolo naye phaa kumaNdlambe. Ngumkhulu wakasiwani lowo ngokuzalwa. Baphuma phaa kuMdushana. You had uMala. Awu, umbodla amadoda. uBhotomane ebekhona, uBulungu wayebekhona, uDilima wayekhona, uDondashe wayekhona, uJani into kaThathu yayikhona, uFeni naye wayekhona, uJali naye wayekhona, uKama kumaGqunukhwebe wayekhona, uKona wayekhona naye. Wayeligogotya elikhulu futhi phaa kunyakonyana bakaMaqoma, uJonga Umsobovu. Inkunzi yaseMthonsi. uMakinana naye ebekhona, uNdluzo Daka. uMaqoma, uJonga Umsobovu ebekhona, uQobo. uMathe, uPhatho, uNamba, uQhasana, uOba, uStokhwe, uTola, uSwani, nonyana kaMala, uSmith. Namaphakathi kanti ayekhona oSoga. uSoga bekhona phaa kwezantlanganiso, iphakathi elikhulu lamaRharhabe. uSoga, ndithi uSoga mna lo simaziyo, uSoga ebeliKrestu, ebengayifuni into yokuxhelwa kwenkomo. uSoga ke ngoku uTiyo ebephaa ezintlanganisweni. uTyhala ebekhona, uMuza, uNdayi, uNkwintsha, noMhlakaza. Unantsika kaNongqawuse Wayeyinkosi, kaloku uMhlakaza wayeliphakathi lenkosi uSibhozo kaNzabele ezithenjini kwaGcaleka. Umhlakaza lo ngumfene uMhlakaza phakuthi ekhaya emamfeneni njengoba nami ndingumfene. Ngumfene lowo ebeliphakathi uMhlakaza ebengengomuntu nje ebeliphakathi elikhulu lenkosi uSibhozo enantsika uSibhozo kaNzabele ezithenjini kwaGcaleka ngamamfenango. Nditsho nezanuse amagqirha amakhulu siyawazi aye khona kwezonhlanganiso. Naku kaloku uNombanda nguye lo ebekunye noNantsika noNongqawuse phaa kulaa mfula igxarha Cebukuhle eQholorha phaa kuCendana eKhamangeni kwelaa chweba. Phaa eKhamangeni kwelaa chweba uNongqawuse nguye ke ngoku lo noNonkosi, kanti ibingengoNongqawuse yedwa, nguNongqawuse, nguNonkosi, nguNombanda. Unangaphi uNongqawuse? Una-16 uyotsho ku-15 ngelaa xesha. uNonkosi uphaa ko-11 years of age. Then ibe nguNombanda. Are you telling me that the entire Xhosa kingdom had to hear from an 11-year-old child to kill all their cattle? From a 16-year-old child, 3 little girls. Come on, guys. Even Abathembu were involved in these discussions. Do you know that? Abathembu, for example, they had Ibambela Lekumkani, the regent. Ufadana. Ufadana was there in those discussions. Ufadana, even himself, he was a Christian. You had Ukwesha, Inkosi yaMandungwane, phaa ebathenjini. KwaNgubengcuka. You had uJoyi, Ibambela Lekumkani yasebathenjini nalo. He had nothing. He hated this thing of the killing of cows. You even had white people. We know which white people were there. We know which Europeans were there in some of those meetings. For example, we had a guy called Harry Barrington, a lawyer, Harry Barrington, from Ekong, so-called King Williamstown. There was Charles Brownlee, Upuluneli, igama lakhe. Upuluneli, he was a commissioner of the government amongst Amangqika. He was there. Sir George Cathcart, he was there. Lo kuthiwa ngayo udaliwe namhlanje kuthiwa seCathcart. The governor of the Cape. Henry Cotterell. He's ngunyawonhle lo waseRhini, Grahamstown. John Crouch, he was a trader and he owned a shop there. KwaGcaleka, he was there. Walter Carey, he was a commander of the English army. He was there. Sir Douglas, he was a minister. He was a minister of native affairs. Sir Douglas, he was there. Colonel William Eyre, Lieutenant Colonel William Eyre, he was one of the soldiers. Kanye ngalamfazwe kaMlanjeni in the 1850s, we had Dr. John Fitzgerald. He founded a hospital there. He was there. John Cox Gowler, he was a magistrate amongst the Amandlambe. And then after John Cox, there was a guy called William Greenstock. William Greenstock, a pastor amongst the Amandlambe. Kwamala. Then you had Sir George Grey. Sir George Grey, the guy who was the brains behind many of the destructive things that happened amongst the Amaxhosa. Sir George Grey, one of the most evil people in the colonial project. He destroyed many indigenous nations, not only in South Africa, in Australia, in Oceania. He was the one who headed Sonneblom, the College for Royal Children in the Cape Colony. It was him. He headed that college, Sonneblom, whilst the kings and the chiefs and the royal princes were rotting. Whilst they were rotting in Robben Island, he took the children of Osiolo, the children of Oanta, the children of Ongqika, the children of Omaqoma. He took them to college. made sure they get the best education. By the time they come back, they don't even want to be called by their indigenous names now. They've got English names. That's why you have a Nelson Kholihlahla. That's why you have a Jacob Gedleyihlekisa. You think it's a nice thing to have an English name or an Afrikaans name? You think it's fashion? It's not fashion, because Verwoerd is not Sandile Verwoerd. He is Hendrik Verwoerd. Adolf Hitler is not Adolf Lebohang Hitler. John Foster is not John Siamtanda Foster. Pig Bota is not Pig Luandile Bota. No, they understand the superiority in owning the naming processes. Sir George Grey was there in those discussions. Robert Hawkes was there. Henry Kaiser was there, a pastor. Maximilian Kaiser was there, a translator. Henry Lucas, George McKinnon. Makinana law. That's where the name Makinana comes from. I could go on and on and on and on. But another important person who was there in those discussions was another very evil person called Sir Harry Smith. These people are exactly why the Xhosa Nation is in shambles today. Xhosa Nation was destroyed in the 1800s, not in the 1900s. The Xhosa Nation was destroyed in the 1800s, not in the 1900s. By the 1900s, you had something that resembled a nation, but you didn't have a nation. And this was the last battle. The cows, the economy, a control of the economy. So what I'm saying is now, you've got all these people, and these are prolific and prominent colonial leaders. You want to tell me that a colonial leader like Sir Harry Smith or Benjamin Durban, Sir George Grey, you want to tell me all these colonizers, these most prominent European leaders, you want to tell me they just went to Eastern Cape just to listen to an 11-year-old child? You really want to tell me this guy didn't even believe in indigenous systems? They didn't even believe it. There's no way that these people were there because they were amazed by this beautiful message. You think they were afraid that after the cows are killed, spirits are going to come out of water and destroy them? They knew exactly that was not going to happen. What I'm telling you now is there's a problem when the actual chiefs, the indigenous leaders, when they come to the house of Umhlagaza and Nongqawuse and Nongqawuse and Mbanda and many others of these so-called prophets of the 1850s, when they can't come out of the house and explain why cows should be killed, there's a problem there. The first problem is, did they really say this? Or is it Mhlagaza's project with the Europeans that he used to worship? Is this really a message that came from ancestors? Or is it a message that came from, say, George Grey and, say, Harry Smith and Benjamin Durban and George Cathcart and all the other magistrates who were running the show? To say the last thing we need to take from these people is the control of the indigenous economy, which is through cows. We already taken the land of the Xhosa from Beaufort West, eGamga, iTsikama siyithathile, uMaxeleqwa siwuthathile, iQarida siyithathile, or Qaridu siyithathile, iQalwirha siyithathile, iQhaqhiwa siyithathile, iQiwa silithathile, iQamdibu siyithathile, iGqeberha siyithathile, iQamdobowa siyithathile, iXesi silithathile, iQonce sayithatha, uGombo simthathile. Now, the one thing that remains, we need to take the cows. We have the land already. That was the only thing standing in the way of the European to have full control of society, is the cattle. And they perfected this. By the time they went to the other cultures in South Africa, it was easier for them. You just find a sellout amongst the people, like they did amongst Basotho. They found it here, the first, and then you destroy everybody using that sellout. You find a sellout amongst the Zulu, you use that sellout to destroy everyone. You find a sellout amongst the Bapedi, you use that sellout. That's all they needed. They needed people who are going to collaborate with them. And this is the weakness of the chiefs like Ongqika. This was the weakness of Ongqika. Behlala nabelungu nje ezindlini abafana no Conrad Device bebavumela nje balale nonina yes. This was the weakness of these leaders. They were naive. They were naive. How could you let a white man stay in your house, take your mother as his girlfriend, a whole queen mother, dating with a European in the 1700s? And then he went on to take a Tembu woman as a wife and gave birth to bastards in the royal family. The royal family is completely bastardized now. By the time the missionaries arrived, there's already abelungu kwaXhosa who are friends with Ongqika Aba. There's already abelungu who are living in the same house as Ophalo. Ndicela ungaxokisi xa ndisitsho. Ndicela ungaxokisi xa ndisitsho. So my opinion on the Nongqawuse situation, it was absolutely a strategy of the colonizers to just completely break the economy. And this worked well because it was aligned with, obviously, the lung disease, but the lung disease is just one of the problems. That thing started long ago, guys. It started long ago. Not just with the lung disease, long before that. Even when Hinsa was alive, the presence of the missionaries was one of the main reasons the Xhosa kingdom was completely shattered. Because what the missionaries did was to penetrate the very royal household. They will get the wife of the king, Umfazi kaHinsa. They will get the wife to be a believer, so-called believer, when the husband is not a believer. And the wife would tell them now to say, oh, my husband is planning on attacking you guys on this day. My husband is planning on attacking. The missionary now acts. The missionary acts as a what? As a spy. So I will not elevate the story of Nongqawuse above other stories. The kingdom was already weak by that time. So you had people known as Amathamba and people known as Amagogotya. Amathamba are those who actually participated in that thing. But some of the cows were already infected. They were actually dying. They were dying. That's my opinion. Guys, I have a lot of problems because here's the thing with Untsikana. Apparently, Untsikana says emdudweni that there's going to be a nation that is coming with hair like ubulembu bombona, the strands of maize or corn. Yes, my brother. They say kukhona uhlango luzayo with inwele ezifana nobulembu bembona, but the problem with Untsikana is that uhlango lwabelungu already selukhona by that time. Phalo has already met with abelungu. In the times of Togo, abelungu have already arrived. It's even worse in the time of Phalo because abelungu are already coming to trade. They're already coming to trade. They're already going to trade. Abelungu. We have records of that. 1736. Untsikana is not even born by then. Endlwini, eThongwana, eGcuwa. Belungu bayahlala. Baze neekoloyiya zamahashi ezifikileyo phaa kwi-15, almost 15 carriers carrying goods for trade amongst amagcaleka. So where is this prophecy of Untsikana? Because if those people are already amongst amagcaleka before Untsikana, it's clear some amagcaleka, particularly the royal family, knew of these people. It's clear they knew of these people. It's clear Kauta knew of Europeans. In fact, he met with Europeans. When Kauta is in Bikha in 1779, he meets with Patterson, a botanist from England. They meet there in Bikha, Kasemkwalan. For 3 days, They even slaughter for Patterson. We have it on record, and we have on record because the things Patterson says about Kauta, we know them to be true. That Kauta was afraid for his life. We know that to be true, that Kauta had about 20 to 30 people around him at any given point in time. Those are the observations that Patterson made. So even Kauta met with Europeans, just like Paulo had met with Europeans generations before Onsikan. So again, some of these things are just misinterpretations and exaggerations. That is not to say maybe Nsikana himself was a fraud. I was not there. I can't say Nsikana was a fraud or Nongqawuse was a fraud. They probably were not frauds. But the stories that are told are somehow fabricated. They are somehow fabricated. So I don't have a problem with Nsikana. I also don't have a problem with Nongqawuse. Remember, Nsikana comes from Amaphakathi, just like Usoga comes from Amaphakathi, just like Nongqawuse comes from Amaphakathi. These are royal, these are like public servants, these families. Umhlakaza, he was a public servant. It's almost like a minister today, Iphakathi. You know, not even a councillor, like a minister, because they are Amaphakathi, you know, kwinkosi ezibalulekileyo. But the way the stories are narrated, sometimes it's just misconstrued. Now you have the story of Unqele, no, Nsikana. Again, you see, there's another issue there. There's another issue there now. For me, in my opinion, I will side with the person who fought the invaders. That's all I'm gonna say. I will take the side of the person who resisted colonization and fought with the invader. So that was that's my opinion on the Nongqawuse situation. You have to decide for yourself. Just look at the facts. All the immediate family members and all the most powerful royal people kwaGcaleka were against this whole thing. All of them. uBhurhu, uNgubukaMalasha, all of them. I don't see how Sakhile would agree with that nonsense. Sakhile himself then goes and runs to KwaBomvana to die there. All right. Guys, today, the discussion of today is not this thing, but it was a question that was asked. The discussion of today is to continue with the history of Abantu, the history of the people of this land, the history of Xingadi, Nqwabaxona, abantwana bohlanga lamanqanqa. That is the topic of today. With my brother Ququche, with my brother Ququche, to try and conclude this series we've been doing this week. We were talking about a lot of things, belief systems, you know, indigenous spirituality. Today I want us to go back to psychological history, psychological cosmology, because, you know, we talk about history, we talk about cosmology, but it also matters that we understand that there's a psychology behind a people's beliefs. So we will study now how our people view the elements of the sky, the celestial elements like the stars, the moon, the sun, and how those views inform, you know, their lived experience from a day-to-day basis. But before we start with that, I would like to accept Brother Urua. He said he wanted to say something. So I would like to accept him. That's the only person I'm going to accept for now. Then I'll accept other people later on, once we've presented and finished. I will accept the brother. He's going to share what he has to say. And then, yeah, we will then continue on the subject of today. So that is what I'm going to do right now. Hamtitina tikai kasab.
Aterna qe hethugu ka iqhaga qawtsi umrena sathi qedi hethugu. I hope you're doing good, my brother.
No, please share your thoughts with us, my good sir.
Yeah, no, you know, I'm not gonna be long, ne? The issue Nongqawuse,
No worries.
it was a strategy to hide about how they penetrated and stole, and then how they they rampaged the Cape Colony in the past. And I remember you and I have discussed this some I think 2-3 years ago when we mentioned the issue of Nongqawuse. Nongqawuse was not a prophet. With my research I've acquired, Nongqawuse was a queen from a progeny of your Ngqokwen, people who are known as your Debe or Tamara people, right? And the problem is, Kwimbali yakwaXhosa, I've picked up a lot of things that were translated in when you accumulated history, because remember in the 1800s, let's discuss, even Kuche also mentioned that yesterday, right? Kuche, when he said that the children, boys, were taken off from their fathers, right? And then the issue of they were taken to missionary schools. And then when they were taken to missionary schools, now when they came, it was an issue of conflicting with the belief system of their fathers, do you understand? And tribal issues as well, and so forth. Now, in my observation with Nongqawuse, we believe that even pictures that were utilized were not really hers, because the colonial authority, I mean, in the past, they used the pictures that depicted her. But some years back, I think back in 2015, uThembelani Mbolekwa Qenkwe uQwashu, we managed some years to get some research with history Nongqawuse that it's all lies, right? We knew years back that this is a lie, right? Due to the fact that the picture that was utilized, and then it was actually further endorsed by historians and scholars back in the 50s, right? To say Nongqawuse was this woman, a young girl. And as you have mentioned as well, Nongqawuse cannot order a 16-year-old order abadabadala through prophecy in Geko, right? Remember, we in surrounding what was Xhosa, that's why I say the history, it's been translated. That is why some of the words, some of the language, original language, it disappeared as a result of what? As a result of the true content that was entailed. It was later hidden. And then they came Amaqopoka, who were mainly Yoamamfengu. They were the ones who wrote the history with the command of Sir George Grey, because Sir George Grey is the one that orchestrated. You're going to, through Amaqopoka, you're going to hide all the atrocities that the British did around the Cape Colony. Do you understand? Now, Nongqawuse, Nabo Nsikana, their legacies, they are not only in the Eastern Cape, and they're not in the Eastern Cape. They are they also survive in other spaces. And I've said this, the history that we read about Osahili, the history we read about all these chiefs, right? These are contemplated history that is been written by church. These people, where they are coming from, their legacies and their descendants, most of them, they don't live in the Eastern Cape. Some of them, they are in not KZN. Some they live in Lesotho. Some they live in the presence of your Northwest. Some in the presence of your Northern Cape as well. Some they live in other countries like Namibia, because Namibia and South Africa was one territory, and you could go to Namibia without a passport. You could go to Botswana before 1950 without a passport. You could go to Botswana before the independence, right? And Lesotho as well, you could go without a passport. It was just a territory where you had to enter another territory in those years, right? So Lesotho was the first to be recognized before the Bantustan section that was also implemented in the past. Now, the cattle issue, it came as a result. There was a lord who of your British Empire at that particular time, who was sent to check how wealthy the South Africans were in the past, whether they were your Kwe, your Trebe, or whoever. That is why South Africa, amongst the lexicon, amongst the Sotho lexicon, it's known as Africa Borwa. Borwa, it means Horua. Horua, it means Ukfuya. Do you understand? That is why when you are rich, ka Setswana or Sesotho o ruile. Do you understand? So that is where this term came from. And people who were known as Abafuyi or Barui were known as Yokwe people. Do you understand? By then, because that's why the term Musarwa and then Morwa. Musarwa ke o sa ruang o senang diphologolo tse dintsi. Go na le o le goreng o ruile ke Morwa. Do you understand? Now, the conjuncture within this is they wanted to destroy and steal cattle from people, and they did that. And there was a period where there was Natal adventurers in the past who were raiding cattle for the British. They did that in the past with coming from what is now present-day KZN, and some, for instance, they came to raid cattle into kingdoms. Now, the history of Nongqawuse was done to cover up the event, because there were commissions that were taking place in the 1600s. In the 1800s that people don't know of mostly. And these commissions, they were taking place because the British, they utilized mercenaries to do what? To swipe land. Land, as you have mentioned, in the 1800s was taken, but land in the Eastern Cape in dispossession, it only took place in the 1860s, due to the fact that there was a commission that took place, which the British annexed it for all these newcomers to get land, because these newcomers were their mercenaries. That is why we had Lesotho. That is why Bangwaketse were used by the British as well to do what? To raid in the northern part of what is today Northern Cape. Do you understand? So in Nongqawuse, it was done to cover up. Do you understand? All these atrocities. Nongqawuse never met the Europeans in the past, and we are referring him in a Xhosa lexicon. His name is Kausas, actually. It's a Nqukwen. She was a Nqukwen woman, and she was a Nqukwen queen in the past. So when you read imbali ebhalwe ngokwesiXhosa, it has incantations that are different. Omnye uzawuthi ubani uzelwe ngubani, ubani uzelwe ngubani, uqhunga uzelwe ngubani amongst the Debe people. And the thing that I've discovered was the true genealogy that is done by Iamaqopoka, it does not have women involved. But if you read Kwe genealogy, it includes sisters. Brothers and sisters are included, not only brothers. Do you understand? So that is why you find that they find it on the upper hand to say, no, when they brought all these diseases, the lung diseases on cattle, it was because now they couldn't get hold of the ikumkani or your Qumkhan or your Nqusekwa at that time, because due to the fact that what happened to the livestock, it happened to people as well, with the smallpox epidemic that took in the what is today Western Cape, that forced Korana, all the Nqawuse that migrated from that part of the world, moving on the upper side. Why? Because they pretended to have priest treaties. That is why the people, they died of smallpox. The younger generation, they moved. The older generation died that side. And then they resisted. That is why they started to resist. That is why tribes, they ended up moving on the upper side. The same happened in the Eastern Cape. They pushed. When the British arrived in the 1820s, they did the same thing. With the aid of these, with the aid of your British your British mercenaries, which were people who were sellouts, as you're saying. And then that is where the whole stigma of Nongqawuse's prophecy, it came, and it was transitioning, because scholars of your 1920s, they brought this thing up. Do you understand? And these scholars were coming from Rhodes, what is today Rhodes University, and all other institutions. They gathered up, they had a meeting, and they created this narrative that there's going to be this issue of the live killing of the livestock in that particular time. If you remember, there was this guy on Movango used to Urantume Ngokala, who was coming from Bloemfontein. He endorsed the book a lot, and then we challenged him at some point, but some years back. But it was not a deep challenge. Nobody could give a narrative to say Ndombiena 16 years can give a prophecy that if they throw all the cattle into the water, the ancestors will come back. I said, no, our people are not that stupid. Our people were very, 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 very prophetic. Even when Tukana, they know that Tukana came, they had a prophecy which they gathered for either a month, strategizing how are they going to prevent him from coming or penetrating. Because Tukana didn't came straight to kings. They met with your field corn heads before within a tribe. Then they started penetrating as if they were progressing. Then they had never had contact with kings. They only wrote on narrative based on, do you understand? Unless they were commissioners who invited them into a party of whatever. But 1800 commission, there's a lot that people don't know about it, about dispossession of land being given, trying to shape South Africa as it was because of we have Kokstad, we have Griqua Town, we have land that were dispossessed, they were taken from people. Example, like for example, Griqua Town, it's not Griqua Town, it's Katikama. It is Kora land, it means low waters. Today it's called Griqua land. Under which jurisdictions we don't know, but because the British, when they penetrated, they used that to maneuver. That is why I say Nongqawuse's history, it is a fraud that people thought that it was actually it was contemplating that she's the one who sold us out. No, Europeans, they do that. It's a style of writing to convince any person who would read this to say that it was the situation she sold out. No, the whole crux of the whole matter, it was inspired by Josh Gray and all other generals as well to cause this friction. But Nongqawuse is not even involved in the whole thing. The thing it was, they had a party which they orchestrated, that the killing of livestock, and the commission, there are commission documents that stated, you understand, it's the same as Ufaku when he was attacked by the British army members who were comprised by Ufin. It was also about livestock, and then it was made to go to it was Shaka who attacked him. No, it was not Shaka. In commissions, there are kings who testified, and Ufaku of the Amampondo, he testified that he was attacked by gunmen. Do you understand? And with a general, and he was shot on the leg as well. So those details, when you read the scholarship of the of the 1920s, it says that no, he was attacked by shark. The same thing, they create these narratives to undercover what they did in the past. Let me not take long, my good people. I was just trying to surface the whole thing. The history is very deep concerning what happened in South Africa, and that is why the style of writing, it was later translated into Isimbo, what is today Isimbo, and all other languages. But the true narrative of what happened there, it was livestock theft, because that lord, he knew that South Africa was very rich. Southern Africa was very rich in livestock, in everything. A king could own 2,000 cattle to 3,000 cattle in the past. Do you understand? So that is one thing that we need to also hold on to the topic, but it's for another day. Thank you very much, my brother. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Mago. Kamago, Tikai Kab. Kamago, Tikai Kab. Thank you very much for that. Now, it is very clear that it's, conflated false narratives by the same group we know. Hey, these people have caused so much damage. They've caused so much damage to our people, to this land. And that's why we have to be very, very careful with these things. We have to be extremely careful. Thank you for that. I hope the person who was asking earlier about Nongqawuse, I hope they did hear. What I wanna now say is, obviously this was not the point of the live. The live is to look at a continuation of what we were talking about. We're gonna continue now to look at the psychology behind our people's history in reference to the celestial bodies, how we relate and how we see ourselves in in connection to the stars, the moon, the sun. This is not something that can be discussed once off. This is very old history, guys. Extremely old history. And we're going to have to keep on coming back. Right now, as it stands, there's about 30 hours worth of content purely on this subject. And we're going to have to continue because it's extremely long, extremely old, and very confusing for some. So I'm going to start now by talking about one of the most important celestial objects, the sun. I'm going to talk about the sun. And the sun in the Qora language will be called Sores or Soreb. Also in Nama, the names are going to be similar. The sun in the Khung languages will be called An. In the Gui and the Ghana languages, the sun will be called Am or Amsa. These are consistent with some of the names you already know. For example, in isiXhosa, particularly Amamfengu actually used to call the sun Iqami. Iqami. In fact, let's go and find and see this. Let's go and see this so that we talk about something that we have all seen. Okay? Amamfengu will call the sun Iqami. Iqami. Let's quickly scroll and find it for ourselves. Iqami. And then let's see what in Kunkia the sun would have been considered to be. And then we'll see why this matters, right? Why this matters. So this is a Kunkia, right? About 30 languages that are recorded here. You have this one, Isho, and then Ishoko. Ishoko, and then we have Soris. Very important. Soris. And then Sore. Then we have Chwala. Then we have Tam. Then we have Tam. You have another Tam here as well. Tam here as well. Then we have Ten. Then we have Ami. Ami is the sun. This is extremely important for me. Then you have An here and then Am here. Extremely important stuff. And I'm going to explain how. So you're going to have to be very patient with me. I like to not rush. I like to not rush when I talk about this, right? Hey Mukarang, are you noticing something? Are you seeing something with are you seeing Shitonga and what is this? And Hadzabe. You see here, this is Embo. When you see EM, this means it's Embo. It's the Abambo language. They called the sun Ami Embo. In fact, in the Xhosa dictionary, if you want to find Embo words, you just have to use the code EM, and then you give it a bit of space. Yeah, and then yes, it's Hadzabe, my brother. It's Hadza. So you've got Isho, Oko, Soris, Sore, Chwala, which is, we just found in isiXhosa. Is in isiXhosa as Tami, which is also cognate to Kami here. We just found it here. So again, it's not me making it up, right? Tami, it's here, the sun, okay? Which is here. And but there's another one here. There's another one. An. I want you to see something, ne? I want you to see something quickly. Don't worry, guys. You will get where I'm going. I'm gonna show you where I'm going with this. You will get where I'm going with this. These things require us to be very pedagogical, and pedantic, because you can easily get deceived and manipulated. Just give me a second. Just give me a reason. Just a little bit enough. Okay. Here you've got this word, Ana. Ana, it's a verb. Ana, it's a verb, right? Used in the passive only. Well, not really. Because this is not passive most. This is the infinitive. To become thirsty. Niwe an is the sun in Kung. It's the sun in Kung. And it's closer, it's thirst. Okay? It's thirst. We've already seen Ami. Now we are seeing An. Let's check another name in Kungya for the sun. Soris. Soris, we'll deal with this one quickly, don't worry. But let's see. Let's see. Ah, it's here. Uchwala. Chwala. Thank you for the gifting, my people. Guys, you must gift. You must gift before we sell out to AfriForum. Next thing. What am I even saying? You know, abantu bakuthi, they don't want to invest in these things. And then AfriForum gives you 5 million. And then you guys are meeting AfriForum then. And you've sold out. Sold out what, nigga? You didn't give me anything. Suka. But don't worry with me, guys. Don't worry. For me, this is spiritual. AfriForum hates to see me coming. AfriForum hates to see me coming. Those Muren. Yo, Mur. Bloody Mur. Okay, guys. Uchwala. Let's see what Uchwala is. Let's see what that tells us. We already know what Uchwala is beverage, right? Es got Groenewald, my daughter. Oh, Groenewald. Zitjus Bang. Groenewald. Piet. Hey, my people are so simple. Uchwala is beverage, all right. Okay, so we've got Chwala, we've got An, we've got all referring to the sun, right? We've got Soris as well. What if I told you that R becomes T? What if I told you that R becomes T? Hureka becomes ukutenga. Uruma or kurula becomes ukutula. Ruma becomes tuma. Reka tenga. Rula tula. Ruma tuma. Ruha tuka. Or tunga, one of the two. You guys know your language is better than me. Soris becomes isotiso. Isotiso. It is literally the sun in the context that Ota ilanga. It is the provider of warmth and heat. Soris, isotisi. Isotisi. And I've been saying this many times. I don't think people hear me. Soris is sotis. Ora litsatsi. Ukotha ilanga. Ukugcakama. Absolutely. Ukugcakama. Now let's talk about ukugcakama quickly. Let's talk about ukugcakama quickly and where the name sun comes from. The name ilanga. Let's talk about that just quickly. Nice. Because there's another name, you know, that is not found here. We'll find it just now, don't worry. Here we find things. Aha. Now, for fire. For fire, you have dana, dani. This is where most idanga, or umdange, or idange. This is where it comes from. But remember, this is fire, ne? You also have what? You also have or in reference to what? To fire. To fire. Now, you take the possessive ka next to it. You have aka, which means the thing of fire, the fire thing. Aka, the fire thing. In Kunkea, you take a possessive ka. Teluguti into yomlilo or engumlilo. Aka. Then when you stand next to the fire thing, or when you stand on the fire thing, we say akama. Gcakama. Okay? This is what we call ukugcakama ilanga or ukugcakamela. Ukugcakamela, you can also say gcakamaba. Gcakamaba, which means uyagcakamela. Gcakamaba. Gcakamaba, uyagcakamela. So, gcaka, ukugcaka. Gcaka is lilaka. Lilaka or ilanga. The old Basotho actually, when they translate the name or when they transliterate the name Langa, they say Laka. If you go to some of the people of Langa in Lesotho, they don't say Langa, they say Laka. Sike bathu bakalaga, bakamlagalati, bakantswemtswem, laga, it's Haka. You see, from this for fire, Haka, of fire or some like fire. All right. We also have people like Amakakwe, or Ekwe, or Kakwe, or Ekwe. That is to say, fire people. People of fire. You also have those who make fire, the makers of fire, Kausi or Kauki. I don't know where the Chauke are. They need to see their people here. All right? So that is the concept of fire then in Gunkia. We also know Litsatsi. We know about Litsatsi. That's why in Nama they will say it's S. They will say it's S in Nama. In Kora, they will say for today, they will say it's A. If you go to Setswana, you'll have Mutse. They will talk about Mutse. And then in Kora, when you say once upon a time, they'll say Hetseka. Yeah, Hetseka. Hetse is today. Hetseka is once upon a time. Hetuchu is tonight. In Nama, that becomes Tseke or Tses or Tsuchu. That Tses is a day. It's a day. Tses, Litsatsi. Litsatsi. That is true. Laka, also Lilakabi. Lilakabi is also what we say for fire. Lilakabi, a flame of fire. In fact, we also have the word for anger, which we take anger as the firing inside fire. That's what we call anger. Inside fire, we say unolaka, ulaka, which is haka. Haka. You have fire inside, you have haka or taka. Ulaka, unolaka. Yeah, unolaka lomntwana. That's what my mother would say. You have what? Fire inside of you. That is anger. All right? So, Litsatsi, it's Tses. Ilanga is Taka. Isotiso, it's Sores. Ikami is Kam and Kami. Now, there's another one, Chwala. This one. Sorry. You guys saw it already. For sun. The word Chwala for sun. Now, I want to explain that one so that you don't get confused. I want to go back to it and explain it. And also, Khan. I want to explain Chwala and Khan quickly so that we don't miss what they really mean. Now, we know Chwala is a beverage, right? Which is a refreshing drink when it's hot. It's important to understand how the old societies viewed the sun. Our people viewed the sun in many different ways, okay? Some loved it, especially those with cows. So your Kora would love the sun. Your Hesekwa would love the sun. Your Inikwa would love the sun. Your Kunukwa would love the sun. Your Chawe would love the sun, all right, etc. But those who needed to go out hunting sometimes had a negative view of the sun because it burns when you are in the field, especially those who are in the desert. So they would see the sun in a different way. So here, the name Chwala and the name Khan, these names come from groups that have to go to the field and hunt. Khan, you find it mostly amongst What is this? Amongst your chwa and your kwena and also your kwena. What does chwala mean and what does qan mean? Firstly, I'll tell you right now, chwala is connected to alcohol, particularly a drink, and qan is also connected. When you are qan in isiXhosa, you can drink chwala. Xa unxaniwe, son, you can drink uchwala. Xa unxaniwe usela uchwala, which means when the sun causes you, qan, causes you thirst, which is a sun byproduct, unxano, then you drink uchwala, which is also a sun byproduct because of the heat. Now, but the word chwala itself comes from the word chwa. Chwa means to rise, like the sun rises in the morning. Huchua, to rise. Yes, but you rise because of, how do I put it? To rise, remember, means to be above. To be above. That is to say, to overflow. So, as the sun disappeared into the night, it has resurrected in overflow. It has been reborn. It has emerged again from above the rest. Chwala. Okay? Ukugcwala and ukuzala, same thing, same idea. From the abundance, it comes up. Chua, zua, njua, juba, zuba, duba. Chua, zuba, duba, dhuba, the sun. All those names are for the sun. You go even to Central Africa, they have the name Injuba. In Uganda, for example, they'll use the name Injuba. Even here in South Africa, some cultures use Duba. Duba Labudi, a good day. Chua. Which is in click form, it's Chua. It's Chua to emerge. It's Chua to emerge. Let's see if we can find it. To emerge. There you go. To emerge, to go, or to come out. To go forth. To emerge from, right? The sun emerges from the horizon. Kwara or Kwana or Kwala. Yes, I've been saying this, Tikai Kab, that you see in Kwemal and Kwedam and Kwekwegwab, you can have Ra, you can have Na or La. Even in now, I know sometimes they use Ra, so you have Chwa Ra. I know, I've seen it. You see, that is Chwala. Ukuvela. Ukupakama. That's what it means. That's why in isiXhosa, then the sun is also called Impakama. It's also called Impakama. You come down here, you see it. Impakama literally means the rising one. It's a translation of Chwara, the one that rises. It literally means the rising one. Khutswa, to emerge, to be born, to come out again. Khutswala is to bring the child out, correct? To bring the child up. Khutswala. Ukuzala. Okay. Now we are done with the semantics, right? We are done with the meaning and all that. Now what's important now is to think beyond that. For us to be able to view how the elders understood then the sun in reference to their life. Now, I took some notes, some important notes here. Yes, impagama, lipahama, chwala, same thing. Isotiso, Soris, same thing. Icami, cam, same thing. Xan, inqanisayo, same thing. Azok. Now, there's a positive aspect of the sun. The sunrise, for example, being linked to Twiqwab, being linked to Gawe, dawn is called Gawe, as we know. It's nurturing and it's life-giving. But according to Samkung, they also view the sun as a death thing because everything has dual nature. There's the positive and the negative. Positive electron and negative electrons. Positive flow, negative flow. Cold and hot. Dual nature. So what you then have is that the Kung tell us that the sun actually has supernatural powers. They call those powers the Ngum. They also name the sun Kan, which gives us an idea from the dehydration element of the sun. Then there's an important part here where they say when you are getting married, you have to avoid the sun at all costs, particularly in its most powerful time, when it's in the midday. The Kuri Traib, sorry. The Kuri Traib, that is when the sun is right above. You avoid the sun when there's marriage, because marriage is meant to promote fertility. Now, according to the Kung, there's an element of the sun that brings about dehydration, which is the opposite of fertility. So then there's an avoidance tradition. That is the psychology of the people. That's why I call this psychohistory. Because then these concepts inform the people's psychology, which then inform the people's tradition, which then informs the people's history. Events will be done when the sun is weak. That is to say, when the sun is going towards sunset, then they will start to do some events that are important. And I remember very well a few months ago having a conversation with an individual from KZN when they were telling us that in their family, they always do events around what? Around evening, late afternoon, when the sun is weaker. And this is what informs that. It's a form of respect for the sun. To say, we allow you to reach your peak, and then when you get to your weak point, then we do what we want to do. It's informed by these fundamental ideas. And it's important to study these things because they show up, but people don't know how to explain why you do what you do. And I'm providing the explanation. Again, among some of the Gwikwena and the Ganakwena peoples, the sun gets dangerous during what they call Xhosa time. Xhosa is what we say hot and dry season. It is the sun, according to the Gwikwena and the Ganakwena, is controlled by Ngadima, the supreme being of the Gwi and the Gana. He's the one who controls the sun. He's the creator of the sun. They see the sun as a male, by the way, because of the scorching characteristics of the sun, as opposed to the light of the moon, which is a cooling light. And there's a gentleman, Undala, he says, when slaughter happens also when the sun is weaker. So when the sun reaches its weak point. And these are important things to know because you have to be able to apply these principles in your daily life. It cannot just be information. This is what we call cultural evolution. It's not just the killing of a cow. It's not just the marriage event that must happen when the sun is weak. It's other things as well in your life today, in 2026. We have things that never existed 300 years ago. So we must be able to apply these principles in other forms. I always make an example to say, you want to start a new project, maybe wait until full moon. Because then it's a time of hunting. Instead of maybe waiting for a new moon, which is generally a time of mourning. So you could also use this in your daily dealings. You try to, save up your energy towards afternoon. You try to push your energy towards that time to say, this is the time where, depending on the culture you come from, this is the time where most of the, according to the beliefs of my people, my strength is most concentrated around this time. Some of our cultures, we are people of the sunrise. We are sunrise people. So for us, the sunrise powers us up, you see. To observe Tweetwap in the early morning, the red dawn, it powers us up, it gives us a boost because we come from that culture. I think I took some notes here. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they are here, but let's see. All right. In fact, let me tell you something. You see, Tina, for example, if you wanna vomit, ukpalaza, you wanna cleanse yourself through ukpalaza. We tell you straight, Tina, you must come at sunrise. You're not gonna do anything when the sun is above you. You must come at sunrise. Sunrise and sunset are good times to use umuti, by the way. Sunrise and sunset, because the sun is not at its peak. So if you want ukafula at sunrise, ukafula at sunset. Ubamba umkhonto, you take that spear, you point it to the east, you point it to the west, and you stab, suck, abambe. You understand? So ukafula, looking at sunrise, looking at sunset, but not at midday, because the sun is strong. It takes the energy away from that thing. The sun destroys that. These are fundamental principles of Abantu Wagut. They understood that if you want to do certain things, you must understand how the elements are structured. Also, if you want to take out Idliso, for example, you don't take out Idliso, it's the opposite now with Idliso, because you're trying to destroy something. You're trying to destroy something. Tina, we used to take out Idliso on clear blue skies, because you're trying to work against evil now. So you are leaning on the scorching of the sun to work with you. So you wait for clear blue skies. You don't want clouds. Yeah, bo. And this is what I mean when we talk about culture and the psychology behind it. These are absolutely fundamental beliefs that make up people who they are. They must align. These beliefs must align, and they do align in Southern African cultures. I struggle to find similar beliefs amongst the Cameroonians, who are said to be somehow indigenous South Africans nowadays. Apparently, Igbo are indigenous South Africans. All right? Now we're going to look at cardinal directions. We're going to look at cardinal directions. And the reason why I want to touch on this is because I heard something that I've heard before, that somehow South Africa is the South, and the map is turned upside down, blah, 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 all those things. Hey, sometimes it's hard, man, to deal with these topics, because people they think these things are as simple. These are not simple, man. So we're going to look at cardinal directions. For example, among some of the Northern Ndebele people, in 2009, we had an informant called Uskosan. Bona, where they are from, they used to use the word Buhlabalanga when they talk about East. Hlaba means to shine. When the sun is shining, liyahlaba ilanga. This is what we say, ukuthi chapha. When the sun shines, liyachapha ilanga. If you go to Gwinkya, this is chaba. If you go to Gwinkya, this is chaba. Chaba chaka. The shining of the sun in Gwinkya. And I'm showing you this thing so that you know you can't escape Gwinkya, whether you like it or not. You're not going to be able to escape Gwinkya. You're not going to be able to escape Kwedam. You're not going to be able to escape Kwemana. You just cannot escape. You are stuck with this. This is one of the words. For example, shine. Here there's a word tabe, tara. There's another one here. Kanya. Kanya. You know kanya is actually ukukanya, eh? Kanya is ukukanya. And then there's another one here, kam, which is ukukama. That's why you have places like kam toboa. Kam toboa. But there's another one here I wanted to show you. I'm not sure if it's in this dictionary or what. Let's see. I'm not sure if it's in dictionary. Yeah, there you go. You see, taba, chaba, to lighten. Ane taba, the sky lightens. This is core, one of the core languages. It's also chaba, uchaba. So you could also say, ane chaba, the sky is lightening, the sky is getting bright. Chaba. So when this guy says here, buhlaba langa, is east, the shining of the sun. Ukuchaba kwelanga, ukuthi chapha kwelanga. That's why you've got names like Nqaphayi. Liyachaba litsatsi. Yeah. And then you have busube langa. Kusuba is to disappear, to end. Ukshuba. We say ukshuba. Akshubile manje. It's going down. Shuba is to finish, to close down. Then you also had ipumalanga. Pupu is to come out, to burst. Pupu, it's tram. Pupu, come out, to burst. Then we use the suffix ma, puma, to come out. Pupu, it's tram. That is why you also have places like Limpopo. In tram, it's popo. From the word impopoma, ukupupuma. The word pupu means to burst forth like the sun in the morning. Liyaphumilanga, liyahlaba or liyachaba. Here now in Northern Sotho, I like it. They say buhlabatsatsi. Here they said buhlabalanga. Here they say buhlabatsatsi. And then for West they say ichingalanga. And then here they say busubela, which is ukshubela or kchubela. Now look at Southern Sotho, the nice one. They say buchabela. Again, chabela is chababa. Chaba and ba chababa is the same meaning as chabela. To shine. All right? To shine. Buchabel, the shining of the sun. Bupirima, the dulling. It's chaba, yes, it's codified. Absolutely. That's why in Isixhosa we use the click form, tina, chapa of the sun. We say ilanga, I'll take chapa. You take chapa ilanga. Also, you take tapa or you take ta. Then you have Bupirima Tsatsi and Butlhabatsatsi Kasitswana. We've already done that. In Xitsonga, they will talk about Vuronga. Vuronga, and they will talk about Vupela Jambu. Vuronga, which is in reference to Ubutonga. Ubutonga. The east or dawn or the breaking of the day, amongst other things. Jambu, obviously, is the sun. Now, I'm going to talk about Jambu quickly because if you go to the Gwikwena that I mentioned, they have a name for the sun, Kamsa. Now, Kamsa is in the feminine. It would be Kamba. Chamba in the masculine. And I see this jambu there from the word jamba or chamba for the sun itself or the day. Okay? Pumalanga, Ntshonalanga ngesiXhosa. Ngachivenda, they will have vuva, duba. I mentioned duba when I spoke about chuba or tsua or tswa or chwa, the place where the sun rises. And then you also have vukobela, ukshobela or ukshobela or ukshubela. isiZulu impumalanga. Now if you go down, Swati is the same. If you go down, we will see sometimes in Nama they use what? Sores ta, the side on which the sun rises. Sores ta. Sores is soris, so tiso. Trab is the sun, the side, sorry. Trab is the side, which we call itala. Right? High is to rise. Kupela. So when Bavenda say vukobela, means the crossing. The crossing. Ukuwela. Oh, I see. So where the sun crosses the horizon, they cross over to a different place. That makes sense. Now in Nama, they'll say Soresta Khaitrab for the east, and then they'll use Soresta Khab for the west. In Naro, the west is just called Khaya. Khaya, that is the west. In fact, that is also the name for Namibia in Naro. Khaya, which is where the sun sets. And these are cardinal directions, but they are based on 4 points, which is where northwest, east, and south comes in. And I think it's important, and I thought I was going to just talk about that quickly. Northwest, east, and south. Northwest, east, and south. Because there's a problem here of upper and north. People do not understand upper versus north. I wrote some notes that upper and north describe different types of spatial relationships. Upper means higher in vertical position, in elevation or rank, also in height above sea level when we talk geographically. Height above sea level means upper. However, north is a fixed, north cannot change. Whether it's lower or higher, it doesn't change, it's still north. It is a fixed cardinal direction on a compass pointing, well, it's not on a compass. North is on a compass. North is on earth, not on a compass. This is false. This is poorly explained. It's on earth. The compass is pointing towards the earth, not the magnetic pole. So it's two different things. Now, when the reason why people say then South Africa is the north, the map was turned upside down. Guys, those things don't change anything in terms of magnetic fields of the earth and the poles and the true north and the tilting of the earth about its axis. Whether South Africa is turned upside down or inside out, the axis of the earth remains where it is. The flow of the electromagnetic field of the earth remains. It doesn't change. It moves from south to north because of the core of the earth which has iron in it, and therefore it creates a magnetic field. Earth has a magnetic field, a real magnetic field. So it's not going to change because the map has been flipped now. So you must understand then, that upper and lower can be changed by cultures, but north and south will not change no matter how much the map is flipped. You are exactly where you've been. So when people talk about Upper Egypt, what they don't realize is that Egypt has, let's quickly have a look. Let's quickly have a look so that we can see for ourselves. So that we can see for ourselves. You see, the Nile comes from this vicinity down here, right? And here, the blue and the white Nile, okay? River source is always going to be on a higher, most of the time, majority of the time, as a standard rule. The source of the river will be on a higher ground because it has to flow down due to the force of gravity. Due to the force of gravity. So it makes sense for the region where the river originates to be higher, to be upper, and the region where the river flows to be lower. So this has to be upper Kemet, and this has to be lower Kemet. It can't be upper and then, no, the upper has to be here because the river is flowing towards the sea. So the height above sea level next to the sea must be low. That's the only reason. That's how water works. That's how water works. Let's quickly, if there's a way, if you understand elevation and contour lines, you can see the elevation keeps on going upper and upper or higher and higher. Okay? So when you are close to the sea, you are lower. Always. Even Cape Town is lower than Joburg. It's a known thing. That's why, for example, if you buy a car in Cape Town, it may perform well, but in Joburg, the car may perform poorly. Why? Because of the height above sea level, because of the oxygen. The higher you go, the lower the oxygen. Oxygen molecules are far from each other in high elevation. The higher you go, the colder it becomes. Learn about the layers of the atmosphere, the stratosphere, the troposphere. Okay? These things are real. People have measured, I've measured these things myself years ago. Just take a balloon, take a thermometer, blow hot air into the balloon or blow your breath. It's probably going to be in your body temperature, 37.5 degrees Celsius, which is your body temperature. Blow into the balloon, put the thermometer next to the balloon. On the balloon, sorry. Measure your temperature. Then go up a mountain. After 20 minutes of going up, measure the thermometer, the balloon's heat. Measure, you will see it's colder. Go up again for another 20 minutes, measure again until you get to the top. When you write all those things down, you will see the air gets colder and colder. And this is not cold as in like something was hot. No, it's cold because you're going higher and higher. Okay? All right? So that is the effect of elevation. Same thing with this. When you are next to the sea, you are at sea level. The more you leave the sea, generally, it's rare for you to go any lower. Because if you were going any lower, what would generally happen is that the sea would come over and spill over to where you are. Besides New Orleans, there's very few places that are at sea level. New Orleans is a unique case. New Orleans will become flooded very soon because it's very low. But generally, the more you live, the more you go inland, the higher it's going to get. That's how it works. So this is lower Egypt. It is lower. It's next to the sea. It's at sea level. This one is higher because it's higher above sea level. The rivers originate from higher ground. Okay? River originates from higher ground. It doesn't mean when it's lower, it's south. It's still north because the North Pole is in the Arctic. The North Pole is in the Arctic, okay? All right? So it's still north. The North Pole is in the Arctic, but it's lower because it's on a lower elevation. That's how it works. So I just wanted to explain that we must not confuse lower and south, upper and north, two different things. Okay? So is South Africa north? No, South Africa is south. Now I could even confuse you further and talk about the magnetic south and the geomagnetic south and then the true north. That's going to confuse you even more. That's fine. That's not for today. All right. I'm going to give the two brothers a chance to comment, and then we'll move into the times of day, and then we'll move into some other stuff regarding stars and the moon and all that. Murena Makar, if you want to say something, sir. Are you still with us? Are you sleeping there? All right. I think Josh, if you want to say something.
I'm very impressed. Your teachings are very impressive, and I usually say when somebody says something more, giving a proper lecture, I don't want to. I'd rather say something on the comment section, but so far so good. I don't want to comment anything because one of the reasons you've mentioned is that, let me make an example. You mentioned with the sun, right? And the sun in the old Kwe languages, there's three forms of the sun. Because of Sore, because of the action of the sun. That is how the sun has been named, right? Soreb, Sores, Oreb, some they say Oreb, others say Toreb. Do you understand? And one thing I've realized, in that sense, as we have elaborated, you've broken down, you've used all the influx of other cultures as well to balance the indigenous roots as well. So hence I say I don't want to. You have said all. If I was giving the lecture, I would have given the same, but not as much as you, because you're very wise. You see, when you explain, you explain more. You understand. You expound more. So I don't know if you can give others a chance, but your works, I'm just observing and I'm just learning as well from my side.
It's fine. Thank you, sir. No, it's all right. I'm going to give Mukoni a chance as well, if Mukoni would like to say something. And then, yeah, it's fine. We'll just continue on this. Yeah. Ratamish.
How Tame, Litulan. So I'm so grateful for this. I wasn't gonna come up until you showed the map, and I love maps because I love traveling. So I think just to confirm with what you are basically talking about as well, and I think a lot of people don't understand how elevated we, like, especially when you actually start moving from the Great Lakes area, Tanzania, you start going through an elevation that you experience even when you're flying. You can, and coming from the north, which is Egypt side, you can see that you're going up. And I think I didn't notice it until I started noticing the landscape. You start seeing a lot of mountains as well from the Great Lakes. I think like Kilimanjaro, and then you come and you come past the Zambezi River into Zimbabwe, and then you start going towards Joburg, Lesotho. Then you realize that you're actually in the mountain range. And I think that for me gave me a little bit of clarity on how ancestors also saw landscape, their perspective of landscape, because they would talk about going or sathulamela ka boroka, meaning we are descending into boroka. Do you understand? And then when you actually hear what they mean, they actually are like referring to an area of Nelspruit and an area of Mozambique. But you also see it when you travel to to Mozambique. If you've ever traveled to Mozambique in the east side, because we come from that side anyways, the north and the east. So like when you travel from that area of Mashishing areas and you go towards Nelspruit, there's this mountain range that you pass, and there is this descending that even your ears will see that you are dropping. And that's what we call utulama, meaning to go down, to descend. And you can see that I'm moving from a high level into a low level. So when they are saying we're going to Bukoni, they mean they're actually going up the hill. When they're saying they're going to Boroga on our side, they'll say they're basically descending. But the same thing applies as well when you travel from Joburg to Durban. You will know that you're shifting from one landscape into another landscape altogether, Watulama, or you are ascending. So I actually like this because that's how they looked at things. And if you looked at the rivers as well, they also take that form. The Limpopo River travels from up to down. Similar to the Zambezi River, I think the Zambezi River moves actually where it's closer to the Congo River as well in Zambia, but it also leaves and it goes down. But most mountains, anyways, they leave from a highland or from Sidiba that is high, and they go down. So I think it also gives us understanding on the linguistics of how our ancestors actually like looked at jurisdiction and also landscapes as well. So it's something else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mokoni. Thank you very much for that. Uche, Muren, do you have a word or two for us? All right. Somebody check on Kuhoke. No, he answered that he doesn't have a word for us. All right. I don't want to spend too much time, but there's other few things I would like to just touch on briefly. Just give me a minute. All right. Let's look at this quickly. Let's look at this. It says here the Greek kwena. For the Greek word amsa means sun. Remember, I also mentioned amba or kambu, which is jambu. The Greek word amsa means sun and also means a day, which refers to both a unit of time and a contrast with night. And also, it means a hot, a dry, inhospitable region and a drought-stricken wilderness. We see this in 1981, this guy's reference. Now, the sun is of major importance to the Gwi people. It is an object of resentment. Remember, I said that. It's an object of resentment felt by the people, especially during the hot and dry season, which is called Xhosa. Complaints are voiced that the sun is killing the people. The hot, unpleasant conditions are used as a reason not to undertake certain things except in the winter months. The sun is thought to be the cause of any misfortune due to heat and drought. The sun is controlled by Nqadima, the supreme being or so-called great god of the Gwi. The Gwi addresses the sun in terms of a short formula. It is terribly hot. It is terribly hot. Pass on. This is Xhosa. Guys, this is nothing new. Talking to the sun, talking to the moon. I remember very well as children, we actually used to sing to the sun and to the rain. Mvula mvula izanganeno Langa langa izanganeno, fula mfula, bheka pha. Come this side, sun, and rain, go to the other side. We used to talk to these things. We used to talk to the sun. Now people act like when we tell them that the Gwikwena, speak to the sun. When it's hot, they tell the sun, please pass on quickly because you are burning us. It's nothing new. This is what we used to do. We were taught to do it. I was taught at home. Let me speak for myself. Nazog. We also used to speak to smoke and fire. Msi, bheka ngapha, inyama namazambane zingapha. Msi, bheka ngapha, inyama netapile zingapha. Msi, bheka ngapha, inyama. We thought, it's just in jail. No, there's no other culture that take their traditions. There's no other culture that take their traditions like some casual thing. You understand? So this is exactly what they're saying here. Kushushu, rula. This is Xhosa, which means lihlobo el. In fact, if you check Kai's work, he talks a lot to the seasons as well. He even talks to the year. Kai. He even talks to the year. Nyaka siyakwamkela, we welcome you here. We welcome you here. We welcome you, Sama. We hope you're going to treat us well. This is how our people did things. They spoke to the sun. They spoke to the moon. They spoke to the stars. The old hunter would talk to the sun and say, Eban, give me some of that light that you are burning with. Give it to my hand so that my hand can hit the springbok. Now, the Gwi people reject the notion that the formula is a prayer intended to persuade the sun to hurry along and to bring the following. This was not a prayer. We didn't see this as a prayer, Dean. We are just talking. The formula is actually intended to show respect for the sun as a very powerful creation of Ngadima, and to make it clear that the sun is not being slighted by complaints about the hardship it is inflicting on other people. It is regarded a very serious matter to curse the sun. It is perfectly acceptable to complain about the sun. Nevertheless, given that the formula will rectify the situation, any stronger language will anger Ngadima, who will do something much more severe than the sun at its worst can achieve. So this was just a way to tell the sun, please move, man, we are burning. But you are not supposed to swear at the sun, just like we were told not to point our fingers to the sky. Absolutely. That's why language matters, Chitimpi. It is a formula because it is a methodical way of doing something and then expecting some results and then repeating. That's a formula. It's an established way. Do A, B plus C and get E. So I think that brings to the end my topic on the sun. I just wanted to explore really the various and broad ways and contexts in which the sun is viewed by the people. And I did not even begin to scratch the surface. I must tell you, I did not even begin. Absolutely. That is also why, some people were actually confused when looking at the name Kamagu, because our people knew that you had to communicate with the sun and seek, blessing. Another small thing I wanted to touch on was time among some of the Nama. You see, I mentioned earlier that tes was used, and I did link this to tsatsi. Why do I link it to tsatsi? Because, guys, if you look at the phylogenetic tree of humanity, it clearly points to the oldest bloodlines in the south. I'm saying these people they were not mimes. They spoke a language. I'm saying these people who are the oldest did not speak in, telepathically. They spoke a language. They spoke a language. And that language is the father of the other languages that you find. So there must be a way to link some words together. So Tes then gives us what we know is Tsatsi. Tsukhub, which is the night, gives us what we know is Ubusuku. This is Nama. Tes Litsatsi, a day. Or Mutse. Tsukhub, Busiku, a night. Kaites, good day. Kaitsukhub, good night. Then now, on around midday, Nsuku is Tseku in Nama. Tseku, that means days. In Nsuku. Tsukhub is the night. Tseku is days. In Nsuku. Around midday, Tsekab. And then, yes, in Qora you have Tenga. We also have Gwagab or Gwab. And then a Gwiab in Nama. In Nama, we also have Gwiab, which is Kurikhaib. And these are really just approximations of time. I'm using this to showcase that the idea that time did not exist, there was no way of separating, is complete hogwash. It's complete nonsense. In fact, I'm going to show you something. You see, around daybreak, you had some, Amakhosa used to call it Khekhe. Daybreak is Khekhe. Ukuthi Khekhe kosuku. And then xa kumpondo zankomo amaXhosa, kusempondo zankomo amaZulu, mawube adinaka tsa kgomo Batswana, that time around 4 a.m. when sunlight is so minimal that you can only discern the sharp points of the cow's horns in the cattle fold, 4 to 5 a.m. kumpondo zankomo. This is a systemic way of recording time. And for me, this matters. This matters when the Nama spoke about Gwa Arawam, or evening twilight, and Gwitsukhubab. It matters to me. It matters to me when the Nama spoke of, Gab and Abakobob, which is twilight, the red twilight. You see, when the sun sets, it also appears red. It's Abakobob. You know that movie of vampires? Abakobob, twilight, when it's red. And Kamgwakobob, that one is called little children's twilight. Ukhatya. When you guys, what you guys call ukuhlwa, it's gwa. Ukuhlwa, gwa. Right? Again, this is me just sharing. This is me just sharing, ideas around time. Now, this changes things because I already know this. I already am very comfortable, again, in this understanding. I'm very comfortable in this understanding of time and recording of time and events by our people. But I know there are many people who do not know these things, and they need and they deserve to know them. Because what we're not going to have is a bunch of people who are confused. Now, talking about the moon, okay? I'm going to talk just briefly about the moon now. The moon, which some people, amaXhosa for example, will call inyanga, but we also know that it's also called inkwezi amongst amaXhosa, also called unyezi. AmaZulu also use these kind of words. Inkwezi, unyezi. Right? Nwezi to the Shona and Bavenda. Ngwedi to Sesotho and Botswana. What is the significance? What is the significance? Well, amaXhosa have a word called ixesha. This word ixesha appears when we talk about a young girl who has gone through the period. Isn't it the same when the Qora say qas or qam, qas or qab? That same qas is the one that amaXhosa will use. But umntwana usexesheni. The child is in the moon. Okay? The child is in the moon. Today, many people use the word ixesha, but they don't realize it literally means moon. Literally. There's someone who's asking here that they say English is a spell. Therefore, morning is derived from mourning. No, you see, of course, spell is to say something aloud. Again, when you are spelling, you are saying it aloud with your mouth, right? So there is an element there. But the word morning actually come from an old English root, morgen. Morgen, okay? Morgen. That's where the word morning for greeting, it comes from morgen, which come from a Middle English, morwen. Literally. Go to Middle English, you'll find the word morwen. Morwen or moren will give you the Old English, morgen. I always teach about lenition, that languages soften their words. So you move from morgen to morwen to morn to morning. The ing is just what? A suffix. But before morning, you had morwen and morn. Before morn, you had morgen. Before morgen, you had the Proto-Germanic word murchana. Murchana meant when the day is breaking, when the sun is appearing in the morning. Murchana. Even if you go to other related languages, that you have cognates, like in Dutch and German, you'll still have the cognates morgen. But it comes from an even older root in Proto-Indo-European. The root is morch. Morch means to dawn, to break, and merk, to blink or to twinkle. Merk is to blink or to twinkle. So that's where originally it was not morning, it was morgen. It had a rough sound to it. It just went through lenition, it got softer, became morgen, morwen, and more, and morn, and morning. That is the day, the time of day, okay? Then the word to mourn actually comes from a word which means to remember. The word for morning comes from a word which means to twinkle, to shine, like the day break. Whereas the word for morning means to remember. It comes from Old English, murnan. Murnan, to feel bad, to regret, or Proto-Germanic, murnan again. But if you go to Indo-European, there's a root there, smer. It means to remember something. Okay? So they sound the same, but they are not the same. Again, because English is it takes from many different sources. You must know where the word comes from. You must be able to tell, is it a Germanic word? Is it a Latin word? Comes from Romance languages? Does it come from Arabic? Does it come from Hebrew? Then you can track it. So sometimes the words sound the same, but they have nothing to do with each other. Like these two. Mourning comes from sadness and remembering. Morning comes from shining and brightness. So I just wanted to answer that quickly. And that's where, like Morowani and Morohwani and Molweni again, they are linked to that word. All right. I'll talk about the moon now. So we have Inyanga, Inkwezi. Now the word Inyanga actually, it's an old root which means to shine. It's an old root which means to shine. You find the word even as far as Kenya, by the way. You find the word even as far as Kenya. Okay? No, I absolutely, when I Luyanda, absolutely. You see, you can't turn everything into spirituality. Yes, words do carry weight. I'm not going to lie. Words do carry weight, right? They absolutely do. But some people should not be speaking on certain things because they are not informed. You can't just say morning and morning is the same thing, therefore they are cursing us. Okay, but show the evidence then, so that we know they're cursing us for real, okay? So that we know they're cursing us for real. Anyway, the word nyanga means white or shiny. That's what the word means. You find this word as far as Kenya. You even find it in Hebrew. In Hebrew, it's naga. Naga, it means to shine. In Kenya, it means white or something white patch. For example, the Gikuyu have a title that they will use, like Muene Nyaga. That means the owner or the possessor of the white patch. Interestingly, you find some of the Nilotic peoples, they will talk about Mugai or Ngai. Ngai wa Kikuyu na Mumbi. Mumbi is the one who molds. Ukubumba, Mbumbi. Mumbi is the one who molds. And then Ngai, I've learned from old people in the past, means the giver, which is for us, Umgai. But I don't talk about those things anymore because people are just confused. But yeah, in Kenya, they use the word, Mwenenyanga, to refer to the creator, the possessor of the shiny patch. All right? The possessor of the shiny. So Mumbi is the one who molds, who creates with the hand. From the word Ukubumba, we use it in South Africa. We would say Umbumbi. All right? Okay, so I was just explaining the word Nyaga. Now, you will be shocked to find that in the click form, you have it as Kang or Kang, Nyanga, Kang. You have it in the click form in Kho. Again. Now, I'm not afraid to show the links between languages because I'm not confused on who I am. Links are links, guys. This is like 10,000-year-old history. Okay? There's no way that there won't be any links between cultures. Links have to be there. That is our claim to being indigenous. We are indigenous not only to one place, we are indigenous to the earth. The earth must claim you as much as you claim it. And there must be evidence throughout, wherever. Okay. The moon. The moon, ngwedi, nwedzi, nyanga, nkwezi, kang, or kab, or khas, is probably the most obvious feature in the night sky because of its size and brightness and its changing appearance. All right? Because of the phases, many cultures have tracked the moon. We have a 40,000-year-old artifact here in Southern Africa. 40,000-year-old Libombo bone, which is clearly what was used by old peoples to track the 29-day month on average, 29 and a half, when you cut it by average, to track it. Perhaps for women to track, menstrual cycles, to be clean, and all those kind of things. All right. So yes. So now the moon, obviously, it orbits the earth and it goes through a sequence of phases, starting from the new moon to the crescent, to the half moon, to the full moon, back to the half moon, and back to new moon again. Now, according to the Qora, we know the moon is the returner. Umafevuka, as the Xhosa say, the one who dies and resurrects, the one who returns back to life. They call it The Nama will call it Qab, which you also find amongst the Qora. So it's Qam, it's Qab, it's Qas. This is the Xhosa word Qesha. This is the Xhosa word Qesha. All right? So now, it was considered by many cultures, the moon was loved by many cultures, particularly because it's such a pleasant object in the sky. It's not really, it's very calm and cool, the moon, compared to the sun's heat. That's why then the sun would be personified as a masculine and the moon personified as a feminine. And people were not worshipped, but rather considered highly the moon. It was considered as some lord of light and life. And we did have a lot of moon dances, okay? We had moon dance in the new moon and in the full moon. I can tell you right now, the new moon was a Sabbath. That is to say, it was a day where you did not work. The book of Friedrich Ellenberger, History of Basotho, Modern and Ancient, details very detailed, particularly the tracking and the, noticing, recording, and the celebration of the new moon amongst the Sotho groups. Go to History of Basotho, Modern and Ancient if you want to learn how some of the groups tracked the moon before even, night time. They could see it during the day. And when the moon was seen, Naga, the horn was blown. When the horn is blown, it announced that it's a new moon. It's time to put down all your working tools. We are no longer working now. It's a Sabbath. That's what a Sabbath is. Sabbath is a stoppage, a cessation of economic activities. That's a holiday right there. That's what a Sabbath is. It's a holiday, not this thing of Human Rights Day and Freedom Day. Ours was monthly, Baba. We didn't have weekends. We had Sabbath. And it was based on the cycles of the moon, particularly, but also based on the cycle of the year. Like we know there in Limpopo now, some of the cultures there will not marry. In the past, probably they wouldn't even trade heavily. They would only do necessary trade around this time as the year is dying because they are mourning the death of the year itself. which signifies an advanced degree of personifying, personifying elements. Time was also personified. Time was also personified. All right? And it's not just here in South Africa. Time, thought, thinking. These were all personified things. That's why you've got Prometheus. It is literally a personified thinking, personified knowledge, which we call Chaken, Ucikwane, the praying mantis. The praying mantis. All right. Let's continue on the moon. So we would sing. In fact, Amaxhosa particularly, they would have what we call intlombe on full moon. The young men and women would come together. You see the songs I'm playing here. You see the songs that I'm playing here when we start the lives. A lot of those songs would be sung on a full moon. That event is a full moon event. Okay? Amongst the Kung people, amongst the Kung, the crescent phases with sharp points, they saw those as male. And I love this because it shows to you that it's not even about human gender. People always misconstrue the duality of nature with their human limitations. This is not about humans. It's about the state of things, okay? The transitional state of things. I like when the Kung tell us that the crescent moon with phases, the crescent phases of the moon, with sharp points are male, whereas the full moon is a female. It's very consistent with the concept of fertility, with femininity. That's why in ancient Kemet, they will then view entities like Hap, which is the entity of the flooding of the Nile. They will view that and draw it with breasts, although he's masculine, but he has breasts, because what is more fertile than a breastfeeding mother? What is an evidence of fertility more than that? Again, these are expressions of duality, expressions of the very spectrum of continuity. Transition, that's what we mean. Transition, one phase to another. Transition. These express that when we say feminine or masculine, the sun is masculine, the moon is feminine. The sun is not a man, it's not a human being. The human being dies, sun doesn't die. Sun is energy, emission of photons into the earth, which we perceive through the spectrum of visible light, from infrared to ultraviolet. So it cannot be a man, as in like a human being. Rather, a human being understands better when you make things understandable to their perception. So you personify it. So when you talk about Amun Ra, we're not talking about an actual human being who lived on earth. We're talking about the very essence of the photons that are released by the sun through the rays that hit the skin, and they scorch the skin. And because it's scorching, it's of a one extreme. It's in one extreme, the red extreme. Whereas the moon seems to be of a calmer, more constant state, a different extreme. So one is feminine, one is masculine. But within that feminine moon, within that so-called feminine moon, the phases change. So the crescent with the sharp ends are masculine, the full moon is feminine. So again, it speaks to duality. Absolutely important principle. Very important principle to understand. Okay? So let's move. That is the Kung people then who viewed the moon as having crescent phases which were masculine. and then the full moon, which was feminine. I did say that amaXhosa, when it's a new moon, which we call inyanga etwasileyo, kwaXhosa, you do not work, you do not do anything, you do not celebrate, you do not travel in the full moon, in the new moon. It is a Sabbath. You celebrate, but you do not work. Celebrating the new moon, inyanga etwasileyo, itwasile inyanga. Then the full moon now, that is the real deal, because that's where important events will be scheduled around. So important events, announcements, marriages will be around the what? The full moon, again, linked to that fullness. That's why then the Quran will call the full moon Aiqab, the moon of the hunter. Also now, around the full moon, mothers, as we know, would deworm their children, kwaXhosa. Mothers would give you medicine to kill your worms, because the belief was that around the full moon, the worms would collect together in one place. The worms would collect together in one place. According to the Narrow Bushmen, the Nongqawuse peoples, when the crescent moon slopes downward, it is said to be looking into a grave. This is a sign many people will pass on. When it's pointing upward, it was a favorable sign. Whereas the round moon was a sign of satisfaction and that people will find plenty. To this day, people will call the downward facing moon as a sad moon, the upward facing moon as a what? As a happy moon. To this day, people use words like that. Then what you have that amongst the Tram, the moon is a man. Again, it's a spectrum. It's not fixed. Amongst the Tram, the moon is a man. He made the sun angry. So, it's like they're chasing each other in the sky. You see this a lot. You see this a lot in our cultures where people felt like the moon is being chased by the sun. That is the story of the moon, my people. The Kang, the Nyanga, the Nwezi, the Ngwedi, the Mwezi, the Nkwezi, the Kab, the Kas, Ixesha. That's the story of the moon. Now, you must track the moon. You must track the moon. Okay? So that you understand how time works in indigenous setting. This is also the lack of the moon. The lack of the knowledge of the moon is what people make the mistake. It's why they make the mistake of thinking that January, February, March, April have equivalents in our culture. There is no equivalent for those things, guys. We don't have January, Tina. We don't have February. We have indigenous months based on moon cycles. January is based on the calendar, not on the moon. So you can't have an equivalent, unfortunately. You can't. You just don't have an equivalent. Okay? Nongqawuse is more linked to the stars than the moon itself. Nongqawuse is the earth, actually. Nongqawuse is linked to plowing. We plow when we see the Pleiades on the eastern horizon. Okay? It's more linked to the sky and the stars. To the sky and the stars. Inkosazana, some would say. Now, this Inkosazana is accompanied. Nongqawuse is accompanied, all right, by 7 girls. These 7 girls are the daughters of Tiqwab, actually. These are, according to the Nama, the Pleiades is Kunuseti. That's what it's called. The Pleiades is called Kunuseti, and the Kunuseti are the daughters of Tiqwab. One of their husbands is Aldebaran, the star. So these daughters come accompanying Inkosazana around September. Inkosazana unomkhubulwane, the secret is in the name, because ukukhubula is to plow again and again and again. That's why Ukreto Mutwa Umkulu used to say the lady of many fields that have been plowed. So unomkhulwane is directly linked to spring, but also to the plowing activity itself. The transitional period between spring, winter and spring, that is the time when unomkhulwane is mostly active. Inkosazana. And when we talk about now the rainbow as the rod and staff of Nomkhubulwane. Back in the day, there was a ceremony for Nomkhubulwane known as Umpukulo. There was a ceremony known as Umpukulo. I told you that girls, during time of famine, they would go to a certain place, certain kraal, sit down there, silently. Girls are the one group that we rely upon to bring rain, by the way, because girls have a relationship, a special relationship with fertility. And I'm talking about girls in our culture, maidens. You can go to the Tram, you can go to the Xhosa, you can go to the Tembu, you can go to the Zulu. Girls, when there's no rain, are one of the groups that are called upon. When there's famine, when there's drought, you call virgin girls to go to the fields, to talk to the fields, to talk to the rain, to call on the rain. You send them to the river. Because there's it's almost like they're opposite poles. According to the Tram, virgin girls who have not yet given birth are opposite poles to what? To the rain. They are opposites. So they attract it, but they must also avoid it. All right? They must also avoid the rain. But when the rain is not coming, you take the girls to the fields. You take the girls to the river to bring the rain. So they go and do this event called Umpukulo to a certain crowd. They don't say any word. Bapukuli milomo. They pout their lips and they are given food. Some of this food then is taken into the river. It's taken into the river, perhaps to induce rain. And this is what I'm thinking. Because we used to do something similar with the southern ground hornbill. In Tsikizi, you would take Tsikizi, throw it into the river. The river would need to redeem itself from that. It becomes unclean now. So it needs to redeem itself from that by overflowing. And for the river to overflow, rain is needed. So it's almost like the girls are doing a taboo by going to the river. They are doing something taboo that is not allowed. Because it's almost like for girls and rain, they have to be away from each other. But when the rain is not coming, you take the virgins there. That is the ceremony of Nomkhubulwane as well. The lady of fertility. Some also call Nomkhubulwana. They also call that ceremony Unomphukulwana or Unomdende. Nomdede, yes. The Greeks have something called Ceres. They have something called Ceres, okay? It's similar to Nomkhubulwane. It's not Greeks, sorry. It's the Romans. They had something called Ceres, the god of agriculture, crops, fertility, and motherly relationship. The Greeks, the Romans had Ceres. The Greeks have Gaia. But now Gaia is specifically the mother of, it's the earth itself, which in some epithets Nomkulwana is. Nomkulwana is the earth itself in some epithets. But particularly, Nomkulwana is linked to agriculture particularly. So some part of Nomkulwana is the Greek Demeter, the Greek Demeter and Gaia. Some part is the Roman Ceres. All right. Okay. Now I'm going to move on from the moon. If there's nothing that people want to say. I want to talk about the Southern Cross. I want to talk about the Southern Cross. The Southern Cross has 4 major bright stars. But it's also one of the smallest constellations that we know. It's a very small constellation. Let me see if I can share my screen. Let me see if I can share my screen. I see your question, Mukaranga. Ne? I see your question and I've got an idea of what I can say to answer you. I've got an idea. But let me just quickly address this. So this constellation here is what we call the Crux constellation. And then here is what we call Centauri. Centauri, okay? Here it's the Crux or the Southern Cross. The Southern Cross. Luyanda is asking about the color of the sun. Well, the color of the sun can never change. The sun is white. It's how we perceive it that changes because of atmospheric factors. So remember now, our vision is very poor as humans. We see very, very little. Just like we hear very little, okay? We see what is on the visible spectrum, the Roy Jibiv. That's what we see, Roy Jibiv. Okay, let me help you guys quickly. Guys, you see, if you see words and you want to see if they are related, you can just quickly do something called an etymology study. A quick etymology study. You see, in Greek, there's a word called kentauros. Kentauros, okay? That is the Greek word, kentauros, meaning a member of a wild horse-riding tribe. So it's a tribe, people from the Kentauro tribe. But the word itself comes from kenteo, which means to cut, okay? And Tauros is a bull. You know Tauros is a bull. I know this one. So Kenteo Tauros, the bull goader or the bull killer. That's what the word means. Kenteo Tauros is a bull killer. Okay? It's mythology. It's mythology. It's these creatures. That's what Kentauros are. These creatures. Okay? They are half horse, half people. They kill bulls. Now, there's a constellation that has a shape almost like this. This constellation. Therefore, it's called Kentauros. That's why it's called Kentauros. However, Chitauri is a different thing altogether. Chitauri, firstly, is not a compound word, which means it's not combined. It's not two words that are combined. It comes from the word kutaura, which means to speak in Chishona. Ndinotaura Chishona. Ndinotaura Chizezuru, whatever. I speak Chishona, I speak Zezuru, I speak Chikarang. Ndinotaura. Taura is uthetha. Chitauri, the talker. Isithethi. Usikhulume. That's what Chitauri means. Chitauri, the one who talks. Kente Tauris, the killer of the Tauris or the killer of the bull. Two absolutely different, absolutely unrelated. Thank you for that question. You see, again, my goal is not to appeal to what's popular, but rather to try and find what's what's factual. We must try to be factual at all times. So, yeah. So this is the Centaurus constellation. These are just names from the Greeks, guys. That's it. We have our own names of these things. That's what we're going to learn now. Our own names. We don't need Greek names. So this is the crux, right? If you see here, they drew a line, vertical and horizontal. But there's one red star here. So this is called the Southern Cross, okay? The Southern Cross. And just above the Southern Cross, here on this sky, you have the Centaurus, the bull killer. Now, let's learn what the adults of the past knew about the Southern Cross. The Southern Cross, these are my notes now, and the two bright pointers, that is to say, the Alpha and the Beta Centauri, are probably the most recognizable of the southern stars, and they feature prominently in African star lore. Okay? They feature prominently in indigenous star knowledge systems. All right. In Sesotho or Setswana or Tshivenda traditions, these stars are the Tutlwa, the giraffes. They are the Tutlwa, the giraffes, okay? The two bright stars of the crux are male giraffes and the two pointers are female. Now, if you come here to the crux, you can see the two bright stars. It's these ones, the one and this one. One and this one. These are male giraffes according to indigenous star law. And these two are female giraffes. Tutlwa, the Tutlwa, all four of them are called the Tutlwa. So already our version and their version are not the same. They talk about the cross, we talk about the giraffes. So already by the time someone is trying to link Greek philosophy and what, already they are failing because our references are not the same. Oh, by the way, the live is restricted, guys. If you don't know that, this live is restricted. So if you see that there's few people, just know it's restricted. It's being restricted. In fact, I'm thinking of doing what? Of dropping and then restarting. Is that fine? Is that cool, guys? Can I drop and restart in 5 minutes? I'm going to wait on you. All right. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to restart, but I'm not going to waste too much time now singing. I'm going to get to it. Thank you. I'm going to drop now.